Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here Thursday, October 2nd. Still in the middle of the week here. Normally we are getting closer and closer to Jaguars Sunday football, but the Jaguars are hosting the Chiefs on Monday Night Football this weekend. Really the final game of the 2025 Week 5 slate for the NFL, and it's going to be exciting. The Jaguars are going to be wearing their prowlers. They're going up against the Chiefs. They haven't beaten the Chiefs in forever. They really struggle on Monday Night Football, the Jaguars do, so there's a lot to get into with that game. But because today is kind of like Wednesday on a long week, we will hear from Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence later today, hopefully get some more information about some injuries coming out of the win over the 49ers to get the Jaguars to 3-1. We're going to kind of do a little big picture look at the Jaguars and their remaining schedule and talk about, potential outcomes for the Jaguars 2025 regular season, and where they might finish within the division, within the AFC, all that stuff. Right now, if you look at the NFL standings, AFC standings, the Jaguars are currently tied for the division lead in the AFC South. The Jaguars and Colts are both 3-1. Obviously, the Jags and the Colts will play each other twice. They also have a lot more divisional games. Both teams do. Both teams have 5 division games remaining, including against each other twice. So I think you look at the road ahead, and you should feel pretty good if you're the Jaguars overall. Again, 5 divisional games left. This is a team that should be able to win most of their divisional matchups. But we're going to look at a pessimistic side and then my kind of realistic prediction of how I think the rest of the season is going to go for the Jaguars. So really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Help support the channel, look good while doing it. So the Jags, their next game is obviously against the Chiefs. They then host the Seahawks, and then they go to London to host the Rams. And it is a big deal playing over in London because this organization, even if Liam Cohen and James Gladstone are new to it, a lot of the people that are still here, including Tony Boselli, kind of know a little bit about this travel over there. And the Rams are having to travel a lot further to get there. So it is a good thing for the Jags, in my opinion, as compared to the Rams. I don't think it's a true home field advantage, but I do think it's some sort of advantage. I mean, I also think the Jags have a lot of fans over there. So looking at this next 3 games, where are the Jaguars at? I think the Jaguars are running the ball as good as just about anybody in the league. They are playing complementary football as good as anyone in the league. They are forcing turnovers. They are stopping the run on defense. They are playing a lot of different coverages on the back end, making it, the coverage menu very difficult for quarterbacks and opposing coaches to figure out when you have such a diverse coverage, diverse amount of coverages you run at a high level. And then you also have, whenever Trayvon Walker gets back, you have a really dominant front four. And then without Trayvon Walker, you still have the ability to sim pressure, which means you bring him 4, but you don't know where it's coming from because there's all these guys mugged up at the line of scrimmage. You got linebackers on the football, all these different things. Makes it difficult for opposing teams. So I think that they're doing a really good job on the defensive side of the ball. I think running the ball is a bread and butter thing. And then you need some improvement in the penalty department on offense, which will then help the passing game, in my opinion. I think you want to see a little bit higher play from Trevor Lawrence and from Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter continue to get settled. But really, to me, a lot of that passing game will get a lot better once the penalties kind of subside, and who knows when that will happen. So, and then you also have special teams, which has been a little up and down. You want Cam Little and Logan Cook to kind of step it up a little bit. After the last, Logan Cook's had a big punt late in the game, but other than that, I think you want these guys to step up a little bit. So that's where the Jaguars are at, in my opinion. They're also a tough football team. I don't think they're going to quit. I don't think that they're going to lay down for anyone. So Jaguars versus Chiefs, Jaguars versus Seahawks, Jaguars versus Rams. It's technically 3 straight home games, but really the Rams game, not a home game. Short week hosting the Seahawks. I think it's good that you're playing at home on a short week versus having to travel. I think that the Jaguars, from a pessimistic point of view, you could say they'll go 1-2 in this stretch. I think that's fair from a pessimistic point of view. And 1-2 would get them to 4-3 heading into their bye week. They have a bye week following the Rams in London, and then they go out to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. After that, they're at Houston, at home versus the Chargers, and then at the Cardinals. I think, again, pessimistic point of view would probably be 2-2 there. The Jaguars are a better team than the Raiders. They're a better team than the Texans, but playing in Houston, playing a division rival who's going to want to beat you after what happened last time. I could see folks saying the Jaguars should lose that game or could lose that game. Versus Chargers, the Chargers are a good football team. They just got their butts handed to them by the Giants. So that's a tough one for them. We're going to have to see how they respond. You would think with Jim Harbaugh leading that group and Justin Herbert that they'll respond well. Then you have at Cardinals. The Cardinals, to me, the Jaguars are a better football team, but I think 2-2 in this stretch is a realistic pessimistic outcome of how that could go versus those teams. So going into that stretch, if you're being, again, pessimistic, you're 4-3, and then you go 2-2 to get to 6-5, heading into a stretch where you're at Tennessee, at home against the Colts, versus the Jets at home, and then at the Broncos. So again, pessimistically, I don't think the Jags and the Titans belong on the same field this year. I think the Jags take care of the Titans. The Jaguars always beat the Colts at home. I don't expect that to end anytime soon. The Jaguars are a better team than the Jets. So I think, again, pessimistically here, you're probably talking about 3-1 in this stretch. Maybe 2-2. So let's say you go 2-2. That gets you to, we were at 6-5. So you're at 8-7 heading into the final two games, and it's at Colts versus Titans. I think your absolute most pessimistic view of this is 9-8. And that would be very disappointing considering how things have gone. But 9-8, the Jaguars have liked to go 9-8 in recent years. I do not think that this is your same old Jaguars. I don't think that this Jaguars team is really comparable to anything we've ever seen in Jacksonville. And I'm not saying they're better than the teams from the 90s. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is they're different. They're a much different team. They're different in the way that I think the mental side of things, this is a really well-coached group. I think it's a talented group as well. But the mental strain that Liam Cohen's offense, that Anthony Campanile's defense puts on the opponent, and that combined with their ability to teach, to inspire confidence, I think that that's a really strong recipe for success. So again, most pessimistic, not including like catastrophic injuries, I think 9-8 for the Jaguars. My view on this thing is really much more optimistic than that. I think that the Jaguars, I think they could very well go 3-0 over this stretch, but a more realistic view, this stretch upcoming Chiefs, Seahawks, Rams, is probably 2-1. I think that the Jaguars are a better team than the Seahawks, even though the Seahawks do have a really impressive defense. I think they're a more complete team than all of the teams they're about to play. Now, Patrick Mahomes, unbelievable. Steve Spagnuolo, very difficult to deal with. Andy Reid, really smart offensive guy. The offensive line is better for the Chiefs. They've got downfield speed now, but they're not running the ball all that well. Their defense has been up and down a bit. I think the Jaguars have the recipe to win that game. Again, Seahawks, I still don't really believe in Sam Darnold all that much, so we'll see. Rams, they're a good team. They're a good team, but I think the Jags have the advantage being technically at home for all three of those games. Again, we've talked about the Rams in London. Still think that's a little bit of an advantage. So I think 2-1 to get to 5-2. And then heading out to play the Raiders after a bye, that's a win for me. So 6-2 at Texans. Can the Jaguars sweep the Texans? Yeah, I think they absolutely can. I think that the game against the Texans last time should not have been as close as it was. I think the Jaguars know that, and they're going to handle business, and they're going to get to 7-2. Versus Chargers at Cardinals, I'll have them going 1-1, even though I think they're probably better than both of those teams. It's two tough tests after facing a divisional opponent. So we're going to have that at 1-1. So you were 7-2 right after taking down the Texans. 1-1 gets you to 8-3. At Titans, I have the Jaguars sweeping the Titans, so that's going to get you to 9-3 right there. Versus Colts, I think the Jaguars split with the Colts, so I'll give them the win at home to get to 10-3. And I mean, this is an insane start here. 10-3 on the season, jeez Louise. Versus New York Jets, I'll give them that win as well, 11-3. At Broncos and at Colts, I'm going to have them dropping both of those games because, again, I have them splitting with the Colts. Broncos, I think the Jaguars are a better team right now, but Sean Payton is a hell of a coach. I think that they have a good group out there. I think they'll be playing better football then than they are now. Playing at Denver is a tough place to play. I have seen the Jaguars win there, but it's not easy to do, especially with a really good defense that the Broncos should have late in the season. We were at 11-3, now 11-5 after two straight losses, and then versus Titans. That might be to seal a playoff spot, to seal the division. 12-5, Jacksonville Jaguars, 2025. That's where I'm at. Again, I just strongly believe in the coaching staff. And I was talking about this on Club Jaguar last night, but I didn't want to go overboard with my praise of the coaching staff prior to the season starting. I think y'all could tell I had some confidence in them, especially Liam Cohen and Anthony Campanile's style of communication and teaching, but I had not seen Anthony Campanile call a down, much less a full game in the NFL as a defensive coordinator. So I wanted to be somewhat just level-headed about that, even though everything I saw from his defense and saw from the way he was teaching and communicating did give me some confidence in him. So you combine everything I saw this offseason, this training camp, the way they communicate, not only with their players, with each other, but with the media. I felt really good about this coaching staff and talent acquisition. I feel really good about James Gladstone. And then just the culture. They're tough, they're physical, they're not going to quit, they're smart, they're communicative across the board. I feel really good about this team. And maybe it's fool's gold, but usually the type of recipe that the Jaguars have, which is, everybody wants to say, oh, they're just turnover merchants on defense. Well, they have been turnover merchants, but they've been forcing those turnovers. It hasn't been luck. It's been forcing turnovers. And even if the turnovers do, they're not going to dry up. Not with this group. They're not going to dry up. But even if they aren't as prolific turning the football over on the defensive side of the ball moving forward, and they probably won't be, they're still a very good team against the run. They're allowing 3.4 yards per carry to opposing running backs. I think that they have the ability in coverage. I think that they have the ability, again, with Anthony Campanile's game planning, confusing on the back end, confusing up front, marrying it all together. And I think that the offense has a lot more potential. And at the very least, they have a really good running game. You mitigate the penalties a little bit. I think that by virtue of mitigating the penalties, the offensive passing game looks a lot better. And then if you actually have some chemistry improvement between Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., which I think you saw steps in the right direction, then you're really cooking with gas. So that's where I'm at. Jacksonville Jaguars, I think they're going to finish the season 12-5, first place in the AFC South. Where does that put them in the grand scheme of things in the AFC? We can take a look at the standings right now. The Bills, I think they're cruising to first place in the AFC. Steelers, I think, are probably going to be like a 10-7 team. Make the playoffs in all likelihood. The Bengals don't know how to feel yet. I still think I'm not there with them, and obviously Joe Burrow. So probably not going to be putting the Bengals in the playoffs. Ravens, can they get it together and sneak in at 1-3? maybe, but I don't think they're going to finish with a better record than the Jaguars. So again, right now, looking at all these teams, I've only got the Bills ahead of the Jaguars. The Colts and the Jags, that's going to be fun. I think the Jags are better than the Colts. I think that will be proven out over the course of the year. But the Colts I do believe the Colts are real. Like, they have talent at every level. They finally have a good defensive coordinator. I'm sorry, Gus Bradley, but they finally have a really good modern defensive coordinator in Lou Anarumo. Shane Steichen is a great offensive coach. So I think they're for real. I don't really believe in Daniel Jones all that much. I think everything has to continue to elevate him. But they've got a lot going there. I don't think the Texans are going to come back from 1-3. I think they'll probably end up with a better than 250 winning percentage, right? But I don't think they're pushing for the playoffs this year. I just don't believe in the offensive infrastructure very much. Chargers, they could definitely be competing with the Jaguars up there. The Chiefs as well. I don't think the Broncos are going to get that hot, but they could. They definitely could. So to me, and Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, only one of those teams can finish ahead of the Jaguars if the Jaguars win their division, which is what I have them doing. So I have the Jags probably at worst third. I think the Jags will finish higher in the standings than whoever wins the AFC North. So at worst third in the AFC. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Really appreciate you being here. Y'all have a good one.